Gear 5 Luffy versus Satoru Gojo isn't close at all, and in this video I will explain why. These are two characters who have recently awakened extraordinary power in their animes. But in a 1v1 matchup, who wins? Who comes out on top as the strongest? I think it's only right that I start with a character that I've been watching for the last 15 plus years. Monkey D. Luffy. Luffy has just awakened his Gear 5th and has become the next Joy Boy. This was one of the most insane episodes from any anime that I've seen in the last year. From the incredible animation to those wacky Looney Tunes sound effects, it was simply perfect and everything I hoped it would be. But how does this new form match up in terms of strength, speed and agility against our boy Gojo? Well, lucky for us, One Piece is one of the easiest universes to power scale, as it's very much just a fighting anime. Now, as of making this video, there are only two main showcases of strength in the One Piece world, that being Devil Fruits and Haki. Devil Fruits have been hinted throughout the story of being able to destroy the world, with Sengoku being the first to say this about Whitebeard. And we've seen time and time again that when two powerful Haki users clash, it quite literally shakes the world to its core. But now, when it comes to Luffy's Devil Fruit, it has been said that the only limitation is his imagination. Upon awakening this fruit, Luffy's ability greatly increased in strength, speed and durability. It states that this awakening grants him more freedom with rubber. The Five Elders claim it's the most ridiculous power in the world and must be stopped, highlighting how dangerous Luffy may become. There's still so much we don't understand or know about the Nika fruit. It's potentially one of the biggest mysteries in One Piece, aside from the actual One Piece. The mystery and misinformation around this power has led many to believe that characters such as Gojo wouldn't be able to harm Luffy at all, due to him being made of rubber. With some also believing that Luffy still has unknown powers that are limited only by his imagination. But a quick read of the manga will debunk some of this, as Kaido was able to harm Luffy in their fight. Though some credit this to the use of Haki, but we'll get back to that in just a bit. You see, Luffy doesn't actually have reality warping or Toon force, like many would have you believe. His awakening only allows him to turn himself and the things around him into rubber, so that he can then manipulate that rubber however he sees fit. This is similar to how Katakuri and his awakened Devil Fruit allows him to turn himself and everything around him into mochi that he can then manipulate however he would like. This ability is incredibly different from that of Toon Force and reality warping, because Toon Force is the term used to describe exaggerated and often the biggest defining abilities of characters in comedic cartoons. These abilities often break the laws of physics, logic, and sometimes even break the fourth wall. They are generally played for laughs and are inherent to the character's nature. People often argue that Luffy has this ability because he's a comedic character, and during Gear 5th, he does some pretty wacky things, like turning people and objects into rubber. But what people fail to see is that in Toon Force, you're not limited by the laws of anything. You shouldn't get hurt. You shouldn't run out of stamina. You shouldn't reach a point where your Gear 5th stops working. But Luffy does get hurt. Luffy does get fatigued. And eventually, he does run out of his Gear 5th. Meaning Gear 5th, although very wacky and powerful, is not going to reshape his fight against Gojo or any other powerful opponent you throw him against. But moving on, let's discuss his second most powerful ability, which is his Haki. In One Piece, anyone without Haki can't harm users with Haki. So this is the biggest argument that everyone falls back on after the Gear 5th gets debunked. They say that Luffy can beat anyone like Ichigo, Naruto, or even Goku because they can't harm him because they do not possess Haki. Some even believe that Luffy or any other strong One Piece character with advanced Haki could solo an entire fictional verse simply because if you do not have Haki, you can't harm a Haki user. It's a strong argument, but one that can be debunked with one read of chapters 597 and 598, for in these chapters we learn just what Haki actually is. But we'll come back to that in just a second. Luffy possesses all three types of Haki. They are observation, which allows the user to sense the presence of others even if they are hidden or too far to be seen. The second is armament Haki, which allows the user to create a force similar to invisible armor around themselves. This can then be used to defend against attacks that would otherwise cause them harm. It can also be used to hit Logia type Devil Fruit users who otherwise would have been untouchable. Now the third and the most rare is Conqueror's Haki. The rarest form of Haki which allows the user to assert their willpower over others, causing weaker willed opponents to faint. It's important to note though, that using Haki doesn't make the user invincible, because stronger physical attacks, superior Haki, and Devil Fruit abilities can still harm a Haki user. For instance, despite Luffy's powerful use of Haki, he was still hurt by Charlotte Katakuri's powerful Mochi based attack, because Katakuri also used Haki and had stronger Haki at the beginning of their fight. A really good example of somebody getting harmed by a regular physical attack is Whitebeard. Whitebeard was a very powerful Haki user, but he was significantly injured by numerous physical attacks, even though he was using Haki to defend. Whitebeard was also hit by multiple magma punches. Magma punches are not infused with Haki, so it suggests that while Haki can provide a significant defensive boost, it's not an absolute defense against powerful physical attacks. Meaning somebody like Gojo, who has displayed very powerful physical attacks in the past, can harm Luffy, even if he is using Haki to defend. Okay, so that's enough of that. Let's move on to Gojo. Gojo, the 6 Eyes Limitless user of JJK, is the strongest in his world, or on par with the strongest if you believe Sukuna is the strongest. Anyway, Gojo is insanely powerful in his own universe, but how would he match up against the characters in the One Piece world? Well, Gojo's powers are quite complex and less people actually understand them than you'd think. People love to put Gojo on this pedestal and state that he's a god, the god of Jujutsu. He can't be touched and is completely unbeatable. Much in the same way that people love to say Luffy can't be harmed and could solo your favorite anime characters with ease. But if we take one look at the recent stuff in the anime or in the manga, you will see our white-haired pretty boy is actually more human than we'd like to believe. But in terms of abilities, Gojo actually has quite a few. Gojo has Limitless. Limitless is an inherent technique within the Gojo family that implies the concept of infinity in a way that allows the user to manipulate and distort space at will. When paired with the 6 Eyes, it makes Gojo into what many believe to be a god, but we'll get back to that in just a bit. He also has the Red and Blue. These powers are basically extreme versions of pushing, pulling, and twisting matter. I probably won't be talking about them much because I don't think they would do a lot against the Rubber Man. Moving on, Gojo also has his 6 Eyes, which should allow him to see Luffy's use of Haki, while also granting him his infinite stamina. Gojo can also float and teleport by using an unknown set of rules and restrictions. Moving on to his 4 main abilities that are going to make a big difference in this fight versus Gear 5 Luffy. First is his Hollow Purple. Many fans misunderstand this ability and think whoever he hits with it gets erased from existence. But this is debunked with one look at the recent manga stuff, where, slight spoiler, Sukuna tanks a direct hit from one of these attacks that was sent at 200 times power. With that being said, this is probably the strongest non-domain attack in the whole series. But now for the domain itself, Unlimited Void. Unlike Purple, this attack is actually a form of durability negation. We can assume that it covers over 200 meters going off of the distance that we know Sukuna's domain covers. Anyone who is trapped inside becomes basically useless, because while inside, their brain gets overloaded with 2.5 years worth of information every single second. This means anyone without insane mental fortitude or processing power will have their brain shut down by this attack. Next is his Reverse Curse technique, something we learned in his flashback chapters that he keeps on at all times due to his limitless stamina. This means he basically has endless regeneration. He doesn't seem to suffer from mental or physical fatigue in any way, shape or form. Basically, without doing some major damage to his brain, he'd likely just be able to recuperate and continue fighting. But now for the most overhyped and misunderstood power in Gojo's arsenal, Infinity. Infinity is the power of impossibility brought into reality, developed to its true form and brought to its peak. This is only possible by someone with the 6 Eyes and limitless abilities of the Gojo family. When someone is born with both, no one in the world can touch them. This power, in my opinion, makes the defensive abilities of Luffy and other One Piece characters look pitiful. Combining this with all of his powers, he can create the ultimate defense. Infinity is a powerful ability, made even more powerful by the insane abilities of the 6 Eyes. Gojo explains it like this: what I've been doing manually, I can now do automatically. And it's not just the intensity of the cursed energy, but its mass, shape, and speed. I can use them all to distinguish the danger of an object. So let me explain what he means by this. Gojo's automatic infinity works by designating a target within his range, assessing its threat level, then creating an infinite division accordingly. This is why Toji was able to stab Gojo in the back, because by dropping the bounty on Riko's head, Gojo was no longer on guard, and was completely relaxed with his friends. A similar example is how Megumi and Itadori can touch Gojo whenever they want, because they didn't pass step 2. They have no threat level. You see, this is what people don't realize. Gojo's barrier isn't always present, and has a single hard limit on it: his brain. Put simply, if Gojo's brain can't process you, Gojo can't use infinity on you. Now what this means for his fight versus Luffy is that if Luffy, in his Gear 5th form, moves and attacks at a fast enough speed, then Gojo's Limitless won't be able to activate, and he will lose his unbeatable defense, giving Luffy the edge. But now, after all that, let's discuss how this fight may play out. In base, Gojo will have the upper hand, pushing Luffy to activate his Gear 4th. In this form, his speed will begin to push Gojo back, but it won't be fast enough to break the unlimited defense. Gojo once again will get the upper hand by using his domain expansion, which will completely destroy Luffy. On the edge of death, Luffy will awaken his Gear 5th, and outspeed Gojo's defense, giving him the upper hand once again. In my opinion, this fight has two outcomes. The first is Gojo shuts Luffy down early with his domain expansion. The second is that Gojo lets Luffy transform into his Gear 5th, where Luffy will end up defeating Gojo, but not ending him, as Luffy never kills anyone. Gojo's rapid recovery powers will kick in and he'll return to life ready to continue fighting. Only by this point, Luffy's Gear 5th will run out, and he'll become useless, leaving Gojo ready to finish him off. So yeah, Gojo wins with a bit of struggle and a lot of time needed. But that's going to do it for me in this video. If you enjoyed and want to see more content like this, then please like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments what you think. Do you think Gojo actually wins this fight? Or do you think Luffy comes back and destroys him with Gear 5th? I hope you have a great day, and peace.